Hello everybody! Ooh. So I'm back, and I'm sorry it's been so long, and I'm sorry if I'm flashing up to everything. It is very, very hot in the UK. Well, I say very hot, it's very hot for the UK. It's like 31 degrees today in London, and I'm not complaining, absolutely love it, but the Brits just aren't very well prepared for hot weather. There's no air cons, there's no nothing. So currently I'm balancing my camera. I wish I could show, I'll show you. I'm balancing my camera on this candle with this window wide open. I am playing a risky game, but what can you do? Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry I've been away for so long. I feel like I just needed the break. I've been quite busy socialising. Things have been open back up in the UK. Yesterday was Freedom Day, which means clubs and everything are open, and masks are no longer legal. Saying that, I still wear my mask in
transport and public places, just because, well, with transport you have to, but I think kind of out of respect really, I don't find it that much ritual wearing a mask, so if it makes other people feel happier, why would you not? So, yes!
But today I'm going to speak about sorry, my voice is going as well. I don't have coronavirus. I've done many tests that I have had a slight cold. I think just because I did my last exam 2 weeks ago, I finished my placement, it all just got a bit on top of me. Anyway, sorry, rambling. So today I'm going to speak about applying to do speech language therapy masters and a BSc as well. Obviously I don't know as much about that, but I think a lot of it can kind of apply to both. So I'm going to speak about the application and also about the interview. So I've got some top tips for both. So just for anyone that doesn't know, I am a master's student studying speech language therapy at City University in London. It's by Angel, so it's North London, and I've just finished, well, hoping I don't fail, I've just finished my first year, so I guess I have a lot to talk about with regards to my first year and how it went, and I'm going to do a video on that too. So I'm going to talk about how I applied. So I applied for both City and UCL, both London universities that both have masters. I got interviews for both, however I didn't do very well in the UCL interview. It was one of those things where, you know, you come out of it and you're just like, that did not go well. But I think I do know what I did wrong. But again, it's all in hindsight, so I haven't been given any feedback or anything. But obviously my City interview went well, because I got in. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about those things, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys, because I know a few people messaged and asked about it. I know it's like 3 weeks later than your requests and questions. I'm really sorry. Yeah, but yeah, hopefully you find it helpful. Thought I'd change location, mix up a bit, and also there were some children playing in the garden. Not my garden. I'm in the top floor of a flat, I don't have a garden. But they were playing in the garden and it's a bit loud, as cute as they are, it was a bit loud. So I thought I'd change location, mix it up a bit. I've got my little notebook of notes. Sorry, I need to lean back, don't I? Just about the application process. But before you even would start an application, what I would definitely think about is kind of why you want to do it, what kind of experience do you have, where did you hear about it, and everything basically to do with why you want to do the course, because that's really going to help you with your application. And also any experience that you have, because applying for a master's course is very an intense course. It's quite difficult to get onto what you wouldn't get, I don't think you would get on without any experience at all. The experience doesn't have to be direct experience, but I do think you need to show that you're very interested and passionate about it to get onto the course, basically. So I would have a look at any experience you can do. So whilst I was at uni, I kind of figured it out that I wanted to go into speech therapy, but I didn't find out about it till my second year. So, and I know people go straight into it after uni, so obviously you don't have the opportunity as much to get as much experience, but obviously they bear that in mind as well. But I think just showing that you're passionate about it and interested will get you a long way. So anyway, back to that. So I was at uni, I study psychology, which I do think played to my advantage and kind of how I found out about it. Also in our first year we do a whole module on psychology. It's all very interesting. Well, obviously I found it interesting, I did a whole degree in it. But child psychology and developmental psychology is all very, very important for it. So that kind of got me into it. So I chose certain modules that I thought would benefit that. But also, I also had the research method side, which I think was beneficial because it was not a forte of mine at all, research methods. I'm not very good at it. Like, I enjoy it, but my brain just doesn't really work in that way. And I know lots of people like mine does, or probably a lot of people will agree with me as well. That was also a benefit from my degree, so that is something to mention. You've got to try and find things from your previous degree, or if you're doing a BSc, things from your previous school or work. It might be biology, there's a biomedical sciences module. It might be linguistics or English. English is a big one, and at GCSE you have to study English or A-level. But yeah, it's just trying to pick out things that you've done that relate to speech and language therapy and what the skills you've learnt from that to bring that into your application. But in terms of experience outside of uni, at uni I I volunteered for the Alzheimer's Society. I also tried to find some shadowing work. I emailed a few people within hospitals in Hampshire, which is my home, and in Northampton, which is where some of my other family live. I was very fortunate with that though, because I had a few members of my family are in the NHS, so I had that kind of connection. So I was very fortunate because of that. And then also I worked at a pub for, I don't know how many years it was at the time, but when I left it was about 7 years. So it was a very long time. I worked there since I was about 13. And I was just saying all the skills that it brought me, for example, with working with the team, being organised, and also dealing with customers with some difficulties. For example, we had an autistic boy that would come in. He sat on the same table every time, that's what he wanted. And if you worked in a pub, you'll probably understand that it's not easy to do that, just because it's a very busy working environment. But, you know, even taking into consideration him and his needs and his family and how happy that made them, you know, that was a big part as well that I also kind of included in my form, just to say, you know, I have been exposed to lots of different situations where I can use different skills that I'll definitely need as a speech and language therapist. But after uni, I did have a 2-year gap year. I enjoyed myself a lot, I'm not gonna lie. I did a ski season and I did a summer season, so I was a chalet host. So, you know, you can kind of include that, how you accommodated for them and their families, and how important it is talking to the parents and the children, making everyone feel involved and like they're having a good time. And I also worked in a nursery kind of in between this time, so I worked in the pub and the nursery and a cafe as well, actually. Just to try and save as much money as possible in between. The nursery was just a preschool. I just volunteered once a week as a kind of a teaching assistant. A few of the children there had some speech and language difficulties. They were trying to refer them to speech therapists. So yeah, I feel like I was very fortunate. I did have quite a lot of variety of experience. And also in my gap years, I know I said I worked quite a lot, but I was very fortunate that I didn't have to pay much rent to my parents and all that kind of stuff. So I know I'm in a very privileged position, because I know a lot of people couldn't volunteer and they need to work. But there are working opportunities. I know quite a lot of people who were TAs for a year after uni or on the course, or speech and language therapy assistants, which is amazing experience, amazing. If you can get a job like that, I would highly recommend it. It is a very good taste into what speech therapists do, because speech therapists do all the assessments and they sort out the therapy plan, and speech and language therapy assistants kind of deliver the plan. So I think it's a very, very good thing to do, but they're also quite competitive. And then another thing that I added was I was going to do a Makaton course. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it, but I think it was a week-long level 1 Makaton course. That's something that I included in my application. Right, now I'm on to the application. So for both City and UCL, they have certain requirements and entry requirements that you have to do to get in, and you do need an upper second class bachelor's degree, which is a 2-1 commonly known as, or equivalent in another country. And then you need, again, this is very English or UK based, you need 4 passes, including English and Maths at GCSE as a basic requirement. And then if English is not your first language, on the website it does have the exact score that you have to be, of a test that you have to complete. I think it's 7 point something. I think someone told me it was quite difficult to score, so your English does have to be quite good, but I guess what have you got to lose by giving it a try? So they're the things that you need to have. If you have just finished or you're in your final year of uni, you can still apply. You just have to be on track for a 2-1, just something to bear in mind as well. And then to apply, you need, for both of them, you have a personal statement, and also a good thing to do, I think, for both. I can't remember exactly which is which, but I think it's for UCL. You fill out a work experience form whereby you say when you did it, what it is, describe the skills you learnt, what you gained from it. So I would recommend for both of those writing all of those down with the date anyway, whether you need them or not. I'm pretty sure for UCL is the one you definitely needed the whole form for, but I'd write it all down because it's good for your interviews too. And you need 2 references. One of them is an academic reference. I know a few people struggled with an academic reference because they may have done uni 10, 20 years ago, and 2 work references were fine for that. But just so you know, you need your academic record, so your grades and evidence of your grades. And then for City Uni, you also have some additional questions to fill out. So these questions were scenario-based questions for me. But one of them, if I remember rightly, was something to do with what was the most difficult thing you've dealt with in relation to speech therapy, or what you think you will deal with and how you will cope with that. That's just an example. So those are all of the things you do have to fill in. I spent ages and ages on my personal statement perfecting it because I'm a bit of a blabber, as you can probably tell. So I think it had to be an A4 page. And also, you don't really want it to be more than that because you're trying to sell yourself in a short amount of time. You don't want to be going on and on because they don't care that much, do they? They're just trying to get through the applications. But, you know, make sure that your personal statement has no errors in, and none of it has any errors in. I think my experience is what really helped me get interviews and also get onto the City course. And what I know from both of them, it is very competitive. So I think they have 300 applicants. Maybe even more than that. 300 applicants for both City and UCL, because you kind of apply, well, I applied for both, but I think you can apply for even more than both if you wanted to. I know there's one in Sheffield, I know there's one in Kent. This is only masters, by the way. But yes, I only applied to those 2. But so for those 2, there were 300 applicants to both. For UCL, I think they interviewed 100. For City, they interviewed more. There were 100 places for City, I think, maybe 120. But for UCL, there were only 60 places. So it is very competitive to get into. But also, it's competitive, but if you are really into it and you know what you're going for, as in, you know, you've got your experience, you've spent a long time on your personal statement, I wouldn't worry too much about the 300. The interview. So for City, I actually did my interview online because I was abroad. Interviews I do find quite scary, but I do think I can carry myself quite well. But one thing that I do wish I'd done for the UCL interview is kind of just practice. Whether I recorded myself or practiced with someone else, I wish I'd done it because I kind of just thought, oh, I don't know what's going to come up and all this kind of stuff. But for the City interview, some key pointers that they do ask about is NHS values, and I think they do at City as well, at UCL as well, but I'll just speak about City for now. The NHS values. Also, the first thing I was asked about was what is communication and the communication cycle, which was quite a big one, and luckily I'd done a bit of research and stuff before. Also, the City, they asked me about my experience and certain questions, like scenario-based ones. So, where is a time that you demonstrated that you were quite resilient and hardworking? I used my degree as an example, and, you know, saying what I did alongside my degree to make sure that I had to be very organised. Also, I had some set questions that I asked interviewers at the end, mostly about what they do. The professor that interviewed me for City, he was into phonetics, and I didn't have any experience with phonetics at all, but it was something I was quite interested in because I had no idea. And I was very honest and just said, like, I don't really know much about phonetics, but what kind of area do you specialise in? And asked a bit about that. I think that shows that you're quite interested in the field, whether you have experience in it or not. They also asked me a bit about things that had happened whilst I was at the nursery, or like when I was doing my clinical experience, anything that I found particularly difficult and why and how I dealt with it. And I think a lot of what they were looking for there was to do with whether, you know, I'd said I'd asked for help if I'd needed to. And then with UCL, you have to go and do the interview in person. It might be different now because of COVID, but I did my interview just before COVID. First thing, just have a chat, talk about what UCL does, and the professors that were in there, they spoke about what they did. Then we watched some videos and we had to take notes on the videos and say what we saw, and how this therapist interacted with the client and about the client, what we thought the client presented with. Again, it's all reasonably hypothetical because lots of people don't have experience in certain areas, but you know, you just kind of got to talk about it. And then I had the interview where I discussed what I spoke about with regard to the video, said what I saw, my notes and everything. And then I was presented with a newspaper article. I had to talk about that, and also in relation to figures that were presented in the article and how it portrayed, it was actually about dementia, how it portrayed dementia, whether I thought that was good for people with dementia, etc, etc. I just had to talk about that. The question that threw me, and I think it's where it all went wrong, was they said, you have quite a lot of experience, why do you think you'd be so suited for the course? And I know that's a very basic question, and there's so many things I could have said. You know, I'm very confident, I'm very flexible working, I've loved it, that's why I did so much experience, but I just completely verbal diarrheaed it. And I was like, what else do I do? Like I said one thing, I was like, oh, what else am I good at? Like, oh no, just stress. But yes, that's where that went wrong. And also we spoke to in a pair to a service user, and the service user that I had was a girl that had experience with speech and language therapy. She was then 18 or something. And we just chatted to her about that, and I guess they just kind of saw how we interacted with a service user. But that was the UCL interview. So last location is in my living room, but it's lastly but not least, I've just got some general top tips for applying an interview process. So for the interview, a big one is rereading your personal statement and the questions, for example with City, that you answered, just to make sure you can remember what you've said, so that if they ask about it you can maybe elaborate a bit more on it, or say what you learned from it, say a skill that you had to use in that situation. Next one is NHS core values. They are on the NHS website. It's important that you can kind of maybe link them in, or show how you've shown them, or just generally show that you've bared them in mind. Current research as well. If you've done an undergrad already, you will know how to do this, but looking at current research articles, even looking at BBC News in relation to speech and language, and just finding some facts and figures maybe that you find interesting that you could speak about in your interview, or in relation to what you've done, and say, oh, I know that they've done this in research and that is important, or maybe something that needs to be implemented. Also, if you're not sure about the skills required to be a speech and language therapist, just Google it. There's a really good website called Prospects, and that's literally the website I used. It goes through a lot of what I've spoken about today, skills that you need, qualifications, etc. Develop questions for you to ask in the interview. So these could be questions about your course, be like, oh, you know, what modules do we study, or what module do you teach in, or more specifically, what research are they interested in? Yeah, I think they're good questions. And then with regard to just general application process, I think thoroughly read over your work, get someone else to read over it. Even if you're still in uni, maybe ask if your supervisor, dissertation or tutor or someone else professional could have a look over it, or maybe not professional, academic to look over it. Or if you have any people that work in the NHS or anything like that, they may have a different perspective on it. But yeah, I think generally they're my top tips. Just two things that I've been asked quite a lot is in relation to having done a degree before that's not in a subject related to speech therapy. With City and UCL, that is both fine. I think the thing you need to do is just pull out skills that you've learnt from your course, whether that is to do with research or maybe not, it might not have been a research-based course, but just skills that you learnt from it. And also maybe just focus more on experience you may have in other areas. And then also about expense, I know again it's not really the video to speak about it, but I just thought I'd mention it here, it is expensive, especially if you want to do it in London. You do get a £5,000 NHS grant if you are from the UK. I don't know if it extends to international students, but that's something that you might want to have a look at if you are international. I do have a part-time job as a nanny, work 4 to 8 hours a week approximately, especially in busy times. I do 4, or I'm very lucky with my family that I work with they are very flexible. So, you know, if I go through a very stressful period, I'm happy to do, they say that I can do 4 or nothing if, you know, if I've got an exam the next day, or we do try and organise another day. And if I do have more time, like in the summer, I'm trying to work a bit more, get some more money, and I'm just very aware of how flexible they are with me, and I really appreciate that. So it is possible to get a part-time job, definitely possible to get a part-time job. The company that I work for is Koru Kids, Koru Kids. You do have to have a DBS for it, but you also have to have a DBS for the course, so it aligns quite nicely because it is kind of made for uni students. Final things to say is I would definitely look at the Prospects website. Just Google Prospects speech and language therapy. It comes up with lots of information to do with qualifications you need, skills that you need or need to demonstrate in your application and interview. Also, have a look at the unis you want to apply to's websites. Have a look at the facilities they provide. They might provide you with a certain centre for speech and language therapy or certain libraries, and also current research that they're doing. That's another important one. And finally, any of their values or certain ways that their courses run differently to other courses. So maybe that's something you could speak about in the interview. Say, oh well, I really liked how you did this compared to this uni. But yeah, just kind of work out which unis are for you as well before that. I know like some are more prestigious than others, and that's a big factor. It was a big factor for me as well. But yeah, it's just lots of things to bear in mind. So I hope you enjoyed the video about applications and interviews. If you have any questions, I'm gonna be better at replying. I'm gonna be on it. From now, I'm gonna do a video a week. I know it's a big claim. Maybe, if not, twice a month. But I'm gonna try. I love doing them. I'm just getting lazy and I need to pull myself together. It's the bottom line. But thank you very much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I love how many people have been commenting on my videos. Honestly, it makes my day. And subscribers as well. I've had more subscribers even though I haven't been posting, so I really appreciate all of you. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed. See you soon. Bye.